Hello everyone, my name is Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. I can't actually believe how much information has just been revealed to us about the Malign Portents campaign book, which is coming out next Saturday. Yesterday the pre-orders for the book went up. We found out it's going to be £15, which is a very reasonable price for what it is. I'm a little bit annoyed it's on the short side at only 80 pages, but it looks like it's going to be quality rather than quantity. Basically, with the pre-orders going up, all of the reviews started to appear, and in those reviews we've just had absolutely tons of information revealed to us. I don't even know if Games Workshop wanted us to know all of this in as much detail as we've seen it. We've got so much information we can basically play these games already. Not to their full extent, and you will need to go and pick up the book on Saturday when it comes out, but we've got an enormous chunk of information here. I basically want to run you through all of the main rules for Malign Portents in this video, and I want to kind of blitz you through them because there's quite a lot of information. I'll try and put some kind of tables up on the screen with that text in just for clarity of reading them in case you want to pause it and see that in a bit more detail. But what are we going to get in this book? The first thing is loads of lore, obviously, and I'm not going to tell you anything about that until Saturday because A, I don't have the book itself, so I don't know all the details of the lore, and B, I don't think it would be right spoiling the story before then. I know it involves basically Nagash being very angry at the fact he's being denied souls, but we don't know what his master plan is until I've read the book, so I'll do loads of spoilers later on this week. What else is in the book? We've got the whole new kind of selection of optional rules, which Malign Portents is based around, and you can kind of use them in conjunction with the General's Handbook. We get rules for skirmish. You get 5 new battle plans. 3 of them will be narrative, 2 of them will be pitched battle. You get the Warscrolls and rules for the harbingers and the Warscroll Citadel. Whilst we're talking about the harbingers, by the way, these guys are going to be so much more interesting than we thought. The Warscrolls that were leaked about a week ago, I'm pretty sure they are accurate. They've uploaded them to the website and I had a quick look and they looked the same. I didn't go into too much detail, but they are going to be far more impressive. They have got these extra bonuses and it looks like they are indeed going to be an essential part of this campaign and an essential thing to bring onto the tabletop. So as a quick overview of the actual rules, before I break them down, first we have rules for playing in shyish. Next we have something called the Power of Death, and this is really about cool and crazy things happening during the games based on how many units die each turn. Then we have the Malign Portents system itself, which is based around something new called prophecy points. And these are points that you generate each turn for having met certain conditions, and you can expend those points to interpret prophecy signs, or the Malign Portents, and these let you do really awesome things like re-rolling certain dice or buffing attacks and casting in the game, just general stuff like that. So let's break down some of these rules. First, in the realm of shyish, wizards know an extra spell. This is called Pool of Doom, and on a 6+, pick an enemy unit within 18 inches and you subtract 2 from their bravery until the next hero phase. So kind of useful in some situations, maybe less against certain opponents, just depends who you're playing against. Next we get 2 command abilities that your generals can use instead of his normal ones if you should wish. The first one is called Honor the Dead, and it lets you pick a friendly unit within 12 inches and you roll a dice. If the score on that dice is less than the number of models you've lost, you can add 1 to the attacks of their weapons until the end of the turn, so that's pretty neat. And then the next one is called Soulful Sacrifice, which I absolutely love. You can basically pick a unit within 3 inches of your general and you can dish out as many wounds to them as you want. And for every wound you dish out to your own unit, you can heal that many on your general. So it's kind of like sacrificing a whole load of your units to keep your general alive and healthy, which I'm a big fan of. As for the actual Realmscape features, or the kind of landscape itself that you're playing on, what you do is you basically roll a dice at the start of the game, and depending on what score you get, that depends on the features of the board. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2, you roll a dice in your hero phase, and on a 6+, you can pick an enemy unit to take d3 mortal wounds. If you get a 3, you can roll a dice in your hero phase, and on a 6+, you pick an enemy unit, but this time you roll a dice for each model in that unit, and for each 5+, they take a mortal wound. For a 4, every model on the board subtracts 1 from its bravery whilst they are within an inch of terrain. On a 5, you add 1 to the bravery of all units on the board, and on a 6, all wizards add 1 to their casting rolls. So that's pretty cool. It's nothing too crazy, nothing game breaking, but fun nonetheless, which is kind of the way I prefer rules to be. Next we have this power of death system, and this is where at the start of every turn that a unit has been slain. In the hero phase, you roll a dice, and for every unit destroyed in that turn, you add 1 to the score. Then you look up that score on a table and see what the effect of the power of death is. So say it's your turn, and last turn 3 units were destroyed, maybe 1 was yours and 2 were your opponent's. You would roll your dice, you might get a 4, you would add the 3 to get 7, and then you would check the table, and the 7 would give you Legacy of Nehek, which means you would pick a friendly unit, which is not a hero, and roll a d6, heal that many wounds, or return that many slain models back. So that's pretty awesome. In fact, everything that is on the Power of Death table is very cool. Let's quickly run through them. If you get a score of 2, Withering Wind occurs, and all units on the board suffer a mortal wound, so that's pretty cool. On a 3, Stolen Hours, pick a friendly unit and it heals d3 wounds. On a 4, Arcane Surge, add 1 to casting rolls for the phase, so all of your wizards get better. You get Kiss of Death on a 5, which is where you can pick any unit on the board to suffer d3 mortal wounds. Dance of the Dead on a 6, pick a friendly unit to move as if it was in the movement phase. You can't let it run, but it can move again in the movement phase. 7 we just did, and on an 8 we get Soul Drain, which is where you pick an enemy unit, roll a dice for each model in it, and you can allocate a mortal wound for each 5+, which is pretty much the same as rolling a 3 on the Realmscape feature dice roll in shyish. Finally, on a 9 and 10+, we either have Unholy Vigor and Cheating Death. So Unholy Vigor on the 9, the unit can immediately pile in and attack. If the unit you selected was a death unit, they can attempt to make a charge before they do the pile-in and attack. Cheating Death on a 10 or more, you can pick a friendly unit that's been destroyed with a combined wound characteristic of 10 or less, and you can reset it up 9 inches or more away from the enemy. It can't move in the next movement phase, but being a unit that's been destroyed and returned, you don't actually have to pay points for it in match play, so that's absolutely awesome. I love the fact it applies universally across the board, so it doesn't matter if you're using a death army or not, you can bring a unit back to life. That's really cool. So whizzing on, we have the whole Malign Portents system, and this is based around the prophecy points. Prophecy points are generated at the start of each turn, and they can be expended to interpret prophecy signs, which are, as I said, the Malign Portents basically. These points don't carry over to the next battle round, but you do, of course, regenerate them at the start of each turn. So how do you generate your prophecy points? Well, the first thing is you roll a d6 and you have that many points, but you can also add modifiers to that pool depending on certain criteria. Firstly, for example, if you're playing in shyish, you automatically add 3 to that amount. If you have a harbinger, you will also add 3 to that pool. So just playing in shyish and just having a harbinger gives you automatically a guaranteed 7 prophecy points, and that's with the worst d6 score you could roll. Finally, you have 2 more criteria. One of them is that you will get 1 point for each priest or wizard you have in your army, so for some armies that's going to potentially tally up quite a lot. And the last one is that you can get an additional 3 points for having a hero garrisoned within a Warscroll citadel. The next cool system we have is this idea that every army is led by a guiding malign portent, and this is the kind of portent that led them to the battlefield in the first place. It's the reason why they are there. There are 6 of them, and each one is based around a theme, so it might be combat or enhancing your range, or maybe your maneuverability around the board, or dealing mortal wounds. There's a whole host of different themes, and what you do is you basically roll a d6 and that will tell you which guiding malign portent your army is led by. So for example, on a 1, your guiding malign portent is the falling star, on a 2 it's the bloodied skull, on 3 the black void, on 4 the bale moon, 5 the writhing serpent, and 6 the red mist. In order to interpret one of those signs, you basically pick a friendly hero to interpret the sign, and then you expend that many prophecy points and literally follow whatever that sign says. They're very clearly written, which is also a good thing. We don't have the full details of this yet, but what I've done is I've taken the falling star and the black void so I can run you through the different prophecy signs that each of those have. But something else that's really cool, and we don't actually have the full details of that yet either, is the fact that each harbinger has its own unique guiding malign portent too. For example, the Lord Ordinata has the signs from the heavens, and this is really cool because it basically gives you another whole use for your harbinger. So you have an army-wide guiding malign portent to follow, which you can expend your prophecy points on each turn, and then you have a specific one that you get for your army just from having a harbinger there. As for what those unique ones do for each harbinger, I don't know yet, and I will find out on Saturday more than likely, unless there are more leaks between now and then. Okay, so for the guiding malign portents, the way this works is it looks like you can either spend 1 or 2 prophecy points. Then you have 2 abilities which cost 3 prophecy points, and then you have 1 which is 4, and the expensive one which costs 5. So for the Falling Star, the one that costs 1 prophecy point, you can basically re-roll a failed unbinding roll. For 2 prophecy points, you can re-roll a failed saving roll. One of the ones for 3 prophecy points allows you to pick a unit at the start of the combat phase, and that can re-roll save rolls of 1, which is good for a lot of units, bad for certain others, like Liberators, for example. The other one that costs 3 is you can pick a unit within 18 inches of the Interpreter, and you can only do so after that unit has suffered a mortal wound. Then for that wound and any other mortal wounds that are inflicted on that unit, you can roll a d6, and for each 5+, a mortal wound is negated. The sign that costs 4 prophecy points, you can add 1 to the power of death roll, and this is particularly good because you can actually look at the result and then choose whether you're going to add 1 or not, so that's very cool. And finally, the most expensive prophecy sign is the one that costs 5, and it allows you to pick a unit in the shooting phase and add 1 to its hit rolls. And just imagine how devastating something like that is going to be with, say, a unit of Kurnoth Hunters with great bows, for example. Especially if you're taking a Lord Ordinata and you're battling in Shyish, where you will be able to do that every single turn. Next, let's look at the Black Void guiding malign portent, and for 1 prophecy point, I think it says, it's hard to read this one, you can interpret this in the hero phase, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches that is either garrisoning or within 3 inches of a terrain feature, and they will suffer a single mortal wound. For 2 points, you can pick a friendly unit within 18 inches of the Interpreter, and it can move as if it can fly. One of the ones for 3 points, you can interpret at the start of an opponent's hero phase, and the range of their command abilities is reduced by 6 inches. The other one for 3 points, you can interpret in your charge phase, and this one again is hard to read, but I think it says if a unit retreated and ends up within 18 inches of the Interpreter, it can actually make a charge move. Then for 4 points, you can interpret this one at the start of an opponent's shooting phase, and you reduce the range of missile weapons by 6 inches, which is pretty devastating, but it does only go down to a minimum range of 3 inches. Finally, for 5 points, you can interpret this at the start of any hero phase, and you can add 2 to casting rolls, but you do reduce the range of the spells by 6 inches. So they've kind of made that one a double-edged sword so that it's not way too overpowered. But yeah, anyway, that is my brief look of the overview of how these rules and campaigns are going to play. You do also get the 2 new pitch battle plans. One of them is called Dark Omens and the other one is called Heralds of Woe. And again, these are bringing like the prophecy points and the more unique rules aspects in from Malign Portents, so that looks really cool. For example, in the Dark Omens battle plan, if you happen to own a Dark Oath War Queen or a Fungoid Cave Shaman, but they're not part of your army list, you can take them for free, which is really cool. You don't have to pay any points for them, and they get an additional 3 prophecy points. So then if you're playing in Shyish and you take, say, your Fungoid Cave Shaman, you're going to have 9 prophecy points, which is absolutely insane. But yeah, anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this kind of sneak peek at the rules that are going to be in the book. I can't wait to tell you more and get my hands on the book on Saturday so I can tell you all about the lore and any other little secrets that might be hidden in there. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit that like button. Hit the sub button if you're new, and if you guys want to support me on Patreon, go and head into the description where you will find a link. But stay awesome guys, and I will see you soon.